Now, for more on what we can expect from the next stimulus bill, Senator Shelley Moore is joining us. Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia. Senator, good morning to you. What do you think that this should look like? How much money should we be spending, and what should the program, what should the contours of the program actually be?
Well, I think we've got to look at a couple things. I think we still have issues with our small businesses. We still have many that cannot reopen or cannot open fully. So I think we'll probably look at the PPP and maybe try to tailor it more to the remaining businesses that have yet to be able to reopen or be able to bring as many people back as they need to have a full economy. The other thing is individual assistance. We know that the enhanced unemployment runs out at the end of the month. That is a source of concern for many of us, but on two fronts. One, it's a source of concern of those who are still unemployed, but also trying to get people back to work. So we're going to try to weave something there where we can get people back to work, but also help those that still can't go back. And then I think we're going to look at the issue of the flexibility on the state and local. For my state of West Virginia, my governor's received $1.25 billion. He needs to have the flexibility to say to his city, to our cities and counties, that you could use that to replace lost tax revenues. That's going to be an important part of this as well. We need the liability reform piece. And I think we're going to have a ceiling on how high we're going to go here, because we can't just keep throwing trillions and trillions here. We need to be very targeted in our relief.
Senator, when you talk about the PPP program, though,
yes,
you know, there are a lot of businesses that really can't go back to business, restaurants and the like, that either don't have outdoor space, they're going to move into the fall, into the winter, where if they do have outdoor space, it's not going to work later. There's lots of businesses where just the math is just not going to add up. And my question to you is the PPP meant to help those businesses? What businesses don't you think have either access to it now and need it?
Well, I think by and large, the smaller businesses are the ones that are still, as you're mentioning, restaurants, smaller, maybe gyms and things of that nature, where you're not going back full bore. You can't have a full house of customers, and I think that's an issue. So I think we've got to figure out some way to keep those folks connected to their employee like we originally envisioned with the PPP. But we also want to make sure that they are still going to be able to open their doors. I mean, we're seeing businesses close. That's a source of concern.
But Senator, that's the question. There are businesses. You mentioned gyms.
Right.
I could make an argument to you that gyms for the next 12 months are going to struggle mightily. That until you get to a vaccine or some real therapeutic, the chance that you could ever fill gyms up the way you used to, the business model unto itself doesn't work. And so the question is, should the government be supporting a business like that may not actually have a business on the other side, or may have to actually have a very different type of business in the future?
Well, I think that that's something that we need to look at. But at the same time, we're looking at large employers across this country. I was talking to somebody last night who owns not just wellness centers, but also physical therapy centers. They can't go back full yet either because of the restrictions on distancing. So I think those are the ones that maybe either a second round, if they've had a first one. I mean, I'm just thinking here now, a second round that's more targeted. Right. Or something of that nature, where we can gradually work these folks back to full employment.
Becky?
Hey, Senator, good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning, Becky.
I've been thinking about some of the big companies, too. Obviously, the public markets have opened up, and a lot of these companies have been able to get additional financing and funding. But you are very likely going to see a lot of layoffs that come from these big companies. We've heard it from places like United, and obviously that's an industry that's been hit very hard. But my expectation would be that towards the end of this year and the beginning of next year, you'll see other companies that kind of cut back as they realize that their revenue is down, that they're struggling in other areas. What, if anything, can the government do about that, or what happens to those people who are part of those waves of layoffs that are very likely to come?
I think the best thing that we can do is keep our foot on the pedal in terms of the development of the vaccine and the testing equipment. I think if we can get same day, point of testing results as you're walking into a manufacturing facility, or if you're walking into a university, I think is critical. And we had a hearing on that a week and a half ago, where NIH and others said that we're moving very rapidly towards that. Obviously, the development of the vaccine is very, very critical here as we see the spread start to pop up in certain areas. But, I am concerned about large layoffs. I did see the news on United. I did see, I think also some companies have realized they don't need as many people as they had before. And we saw that in 2008, 2009. And I think that's a phenomenon as people are working from home and maybe more efficiently in some ways. Companies are going to say, wait a minute, we don't need to be as heavy on the employment side. And I think that's a source of concern that we need to monitor as we're moving through this, trying to work our way out.
Right. Senator, the other question, you mentioned liability protection.
Yes.
And it's an interesting one because a lot of businesses want that liability protection. At the same time, we have states, if we're being honest, that are being more responsible than other states at this point in terms of how they're even dealing with some of these issues. So how do you think about liability protection in the context that some states and businesses are saying, we require masks, others are not? It becomes it's a tricky one.
Well, it is, although I would say it's not just businesses. It's universities, it's nonprofits. If you have an oxygen company and you're sending people out to other people's homes and you're not adhering to CDC guidelines or not, acting responsibly, you need to have an avenue for your employee to say, wait a minute, you caused me to be in an endangered situation. On the other hand, as more and more people are going back, if our employees are following CDC guidelines and the guidelines set out by the governors, I know they're all a little bit different, but I think that we see our national companies setting guidelines themselves. I think they can play a big role here. And I think that we have to have this protection in place, or we're going to have more difficulty getting people back to work, or we're going to have more difficulty with employers calling people back to work if they don't feel like they're adequately covered and they're adequately, I don't want to say if they're not adequately prepared, they shouldn't be reopening. But if they are adequately prepared, they should. And we've done pretty well in our state. I see the statistics. We're up right now, but we're up from being like second from the bottom. I think you have to put that in the context.
Okay. Senator, we appreciate your time and your perspective, and wish you lots of luck. We all need it.
All right, we'll roll into the weekend, aren't we? Yes, we are.
Yeah. Thank you.